Good afternoon, everyone. Today we are going to go over chapter four this week. So we'll go over it today and on Wednesday. Um, there's some concepts in chapter four that we've already talked about, so we'll kind of breeze through those. And then other ones, which is one of my favorite, um, is going to be the concept of menu analysis and analyzing our menus to make sure that we are selling the items that our customers and our guests want. All right. So there are various factors that affect our menu pricing. Some of these things are internal, okay, the ingredients that we choose, the recipes that we are choosing to follow. Some of them are external. I have no control over them. So things like our competition, what the market will tell us. If we have the most amazing chicken sandwich, but we want to charge $20 for that chicken sandwich, and our market or the area that our restaurant serves, if they're not willing to pay $20, they don't have that price to value relationship, they're not going to pay $20. So if we can't necessarily demand those higher prices, if we can't get those higher prices, then we're going to have to figure out a way to work more within the market that we are in.
Mr. Uminski.
Yeah, go ahead.
At the NCAA final basketball game
Uh-huh.
last year, um, they were selling Chick-fil-A sandwiches with a bag of chips, $20 a pop. It was
Yeah,
pretty
absolutely. Ray, that's a
captive
great,
audience.
yeah, that is a great segue into the next slide, that demand-driven pricing. So demand-driven pricing means if you want to eat your Chick-fil-A while you watch the NCAA Final Four, the basketball game, okay, then you're going to have to pay $20 because that's the price that they are selling. Now, I think there's still a Whataburger at the Frostbank Center. Back when it was the AT&T Center before the pandemic, that Whataburger was just a regular neighborhood Whataburger. So you could go and get regular Whataburger prices. But then as soon as I think 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon rolls around, they close down. And then if there was an event that night, then the event pricing would kick in. Okay. Same thing with the airport. So a lot of times at airports, you're going to see that the pricing is a lot higher because they have other things to take into consideration, rent, but like Ray mentioned, there's a captive audience. So if you really just have to have that pizza or that barbecue while you're waiting for your flight, then you're going to pay that higher price just because you have that demand-driven pricing. The price value relationship, again, that's primarily how our customers see the value compared to the price that they are paying. How many of you have ever been to a restaurant before and had an experience where you leave and you think, wow, that really wasn't worth the price that I paid for it? Okay. Did you ever go back to that restaurant? No, probably not. Okay. And so oftentimes we want to be able to look at the trends of things that people are ordering. We want to look at the popularity, how much those particular items contribute to our bottom line, to our profit, and are they really is our menu really designed in a way that our guests are going to get the most out of it? The markup differentiation, that really kind of just says that different categories have to have different markups. Okay. What is the average? What is the industry average for food cost percentage? What percentage is that? 33%. 33%. They're anywhere from 30 to 33%. That range is kind of like the industry agreed upon standard for the average food cost percentage. Okay. But we can't just do everything at 30 to 33%. Okay. Because if we do our beverages at that rate, then we're not going to charge enough for it. Okay. If we do our steaks at that rate, then it's going to be too cost prohibitive. Okay. Um, so let's just use that 30% example for a moment. So using our triangle, cost, percent, sales. If my steak costs me, let's say $35. Okay, we're at a high-end steakhouse. $35, that's my cost. If I'm going to use a 30% food cost, what should I be selling that steak for? So I divide by 0.30, and what do I get? What's 35 divided by 0.30?
116.66.
116
66.
and 67 cents. Okay, cool. And there are going to be a lot of customers that are going to pay $116 for a steak, depending on where we are, but probably not. I mean, if you're in New York or you're in LA or Chicago, that might be a going rate. San Antonio, you're probably not going to get that rate for a steak, that menu price. Okay. Now, on the flip side, if my soda costs me 10 cents to make it, if I divide by 0.33 or by 30% by 0.30, what is my answer?
33 cents repeating 34.
Okay. Are we selling our sodas for 33 cents?
We should be.
Right? So we can't sell our sodas at 33 cents because even though that tells me, oh, that's 30% beverage cost, okay, I'm not going to make any money. So most people sell our sodas for $3.50 now. Used to be like $1.99, then it went to $2, then it was $2.50, and now it's almost up to $3.50. Sometimes it's $4 for a soda, depending on where you go, which restaurant you're going to. So you can see how the items don't have the exact same food cost percentage, right? At $3.50, if I'm selling that, what is my food cost? Okay, or sorry, let me take my cost at 10 cents. My cost at 10 cents divided by my selling price. What is my percentage for beverages? It cost me 10 cents to make it, and I sell it for $33.50. What is my percentage? Ready?
2.86%.
2.86%. And we move that decimal place over. So it's actually 286%.
It came out to 0.028, and then I had already moved the decimal.
Hold on, let me check that. Because it should be. Oh, I see. There you go. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Sorry. That's right, 2%. That makes sense. So 2.86%. Let's apply that same concept to our steak right here. What would happen if we took $35 for our steak and we divided it by 0.0286? 35 divided by 0.0286, $1,223. Are we going to get $1,022 or $200 for a steak? Definitely not. Okay, so that's how you can use this chart to determine what percentage is kind of an ideal range for that particular menu category. All right, we're going to talk now about 4 different ways that we can cost out menu items. We can determine a menu selling price. Okay, so the first one is our food cost percentage. Ooh. Let me sit down and use my screen. My writing might be a little bit better if I do it from here. Okay, so the first method is food cost percentage. Okay. So what tool are we going to use?
What do you mean by tool?
What tool are we going to use to figure out our menu price? We're using our triangle here. Okay, cost, percent, sales. All right, so everybody pick one. Just focus on one. And then tell me your answer for the menu price once you have picked one. Those of you who are online, you can put it in chat. Just tell me the number. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and what your answer was. Or you can say it out loud. Who has number one? Caleb, go ahead. $10? Cool. And who has number two? Somebody else has number two.
833.
833?
I don't know. That's what I got.
3 divided by 0.3?
Oh, my bad. I had 250.
Okay, cool. So 1525 divided by 40%. What do we got?
Yeah, it's 10. Okay, sorry. 15 divided by. All right.
Excellent. Alicia, thank you. $38.13. And then the last one, 15 divided by 10% is 1.5. Thank you. $1.50. Okay. All right, so food cost percentage, we can do that. The other way to do it is going to be our factor method. Okay, let me move our chat. There we go. The other way is going to be our factor method. So the way to figure out our factor, we take 100% and divide by our ideal percentage, food cost percentage. And that is going to equal our factor. Okay. So let's look at number one. My ideal food factor is 25%. So I take 100% divided by 25%. And what is my factor? What number do I get? 100 divided by 25 is
4.
Thank you. There's 4 quarters and $1. So that tells me that all I have to do is multiply this answer by 4 for my factor. Oops, sorry. Okay. So 4 by times 10 or 4 times 250 is $10. Okay. If I'm going to go with 30%, you'll see that my factor is $3.33 based on the chart. So all I do is multiply $3 or 3.33, that's my factor, and get $9.99. Is that different from our first answer? Yeah, we got $10, right? So it's just 1 penny off. All right, what is the factor for 40%?
250.
Yep, 2.5. So that is our factor. Let's multiply our answer by 2.5. That's going to give us our factor. So 15.25 times 2.5,
3813.
3813. And the last one, what is 100 divided by 10%? 100
10.
divided by 10 is 10, right? And then we multiply it by 10 and we get $1.50. So really the only one that was different was this one right here, the second one, but it's off by a penny. Okay, that's just because of rounding. But how much easier is it to do a factor of 10 or a 10% than to do the triangle method and put all that information into your calculator, right? If I just take 100, divide by 25%, I know my factor is 4. So I just multiply my cost by 4, and that's the answer, what I should sell it for. Okay.
And
Oftentimes, give me one second, Ray. Oftentimes, you will hear chefs just say, take your food cost and triple it, multiply it by 3. Well, when you multiply it by 3, that's essentially a 33% food cost. Okay. Because what is our factor? 100 divided by 33 is going to give us 3. I mean, it's 3.03 repeating, right? But it's essentially 3. So that's why oftentimes you'll hear chefs say, just take your cost, multiply it by 3, and that's your 33% food cost. That's what you should sell it for. Kenneth, go ahead. What was your question?
I was gonna ask how the factors are derived from food cost, but you went over 100 divided by food cost factors.
Yep, perfect. Awesome. Ray, what was your question or comment?
just these factors are constant. This is like every situation we refer to these factors.
Yeah, so if the question asks you what the menu price is based on the factor method, using the factor method, you're going to take 100 and divide by whatever percentage they give you, and that will be your factor.
Okay.
Yep. So if a question ever asks what is the menu price based on the factor method, you're going to use this. Okay. You'll see that it's very similar to the triangle, right? The triangle, you're just actually doing the actual math in your calculator. Whereas this, I'm going to multiply 250 by 4, gives me the same answer.
Heard.
Awesome. The next method, the third method, is our contribution margin. Oops, I'm erasing, not right. So our third method is our contribution margin method. What is the root word of contribution?
Contribute.
Contribute. Good. So the contribution margin contributes to our profit and our fixed costs. Okay. Because our contribution margin takes into consideration how much it costs us to make the recipe. So we want to take our non-food cost plus our profit. Okay. Non-food cost plus our profit. So what is an example of a non-food cost?
Rent, utilities.
Rent, utilities, insurance, packaging. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so all those things are part of our non-food costs. We're going to take those, we're going to add the profit that we want, and then we're going to divide by the number of guests that we think we're going to have. Okay, so in this case, our non-food cost is $5,000 plus $3,000. So what is our total contribution margin? 5,000 plus 3,000 is
8,000.
good. $8,000. Okay, so those together equals $8,000. And then we think we're going to have 200 or 2,000 guests. So we divide 8,000 by 2,000, and that is $4. So that's $4 per guest. So that means we're going to take our $4 and just add our contribution margin to each menu item. Okay. So what's 4 plus 250?
$6.50.
$6.50. And then the next one,
$7.
$7. Perfect. Next one, $19.25. And the last one, $4.15. Okay. Now that $4, that takes into consideration that I want to earn a $3,000 profit and I'm going to spend $5,000 on non-food costs. So every time somebody orders something, that $4 is going to get added. Okay. What are some issues you might see with this formula of contribution margin?
Not entirely scalable and applicable to every menu item as they're gonna be priced differently.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily that we can apply it to all the menu items. Okay. What else?
Non-food costs are very variable.
Okay. So are these non-food costs? We have to make sure we're staying on budget with those non-food costs. If we go over budget, well, then we're going to be losing profit. Okay. What else? What else about this equation seems kind of iffy?
Number of guests.
Yeah. Can we guarantee we're going to have 2,000 guests come in our doors? So what happens if we have 1,500 guests walk in our doors? That's going to increase that contribution margin, but we can't just go back and change our menu pricing, right? And so the contribution margin is good for some things. Like if you're going to, especially for like catering events and things like that, you can factor in that contribution margin and the menu price to figure out what your price per person is going to be. But just looking at these items here, okay, I'm going to assume that the bottom one is what kind of menu item? A drink, a beverage, right? What if the 15.25 is like, I don't know,
Steak.
a steak, right? That's like, so this means that a guest who orders a steak and a soda is going to pay $23.40 for a steak and a soda by using the contribution margin. If we come back and use the factor method, right? We've got $38 plus $1.50. That's 30. That's almost $40. That's almost double what we can get if we're using contribution margin. Okay. And I tell you all of these things to help you understand that there's not one method. Okay. You can decide what you want your methods to be. You can mix and match. Okay. A lot of it goes back to this price value relationship. If your guests don't find that value for the price they're paying, they're not going to pay it. Okay, Kenneth, what's up?
Other than catering events, what ventures would be best suited to UCM?
So, if you have items that are for the contribution margin, if you have like a pretty regular idea of how many guests are going to come into your store, so if you've tracked that data, and you know during a certain time period this many guests come through your doors, or if you're going to do like a prefixed menu of some sort, and you know you're going to have X number of people come in, number of reservations, the contribution margin would be a good method for that. Did you have a question?
What is the most common one that restaurants use?
The most common is food cost percentage. Yeah. The most common is going to be that food cost percentage, and by default, the factor method too. They're basically the same. Okay. The other one is going to be our Q factor. This is the fourth one. This is our Q factor. And the Q factor, y'all remember last week when we did our breakfast recipe, right? And we had the toast, the potato, and the eggs was the same on both plates. The only thing the difference was the sausage and the sausage and the bacon, right? The eggs, the potatoes, and the toast could be considered the concept of the Q factor, right? So think about it this way. When y'all go out to eat at a Mexican restaurant, what do you expect to be on your table that you don't pay for?
Chips and salsa.
Chips and salsa, okay? And tortillas possibly, okay? So are those items really free or do you pay for them in some other way?
Oh, pay for some other way.
If it's a good business, then you should be paying for it in some other way. So let's say the cost of the tortillas is maybe $1 per person. Let's say the chips and salsa is 50 cents per person. You can add that $1.50 to every menu item. So then that way, whenever they order something, someone orders an entree, right? That extra $1.50 that you've added, that Q factor, will automatically cover the costs of the tortillas and the chips that those guests are eating. Okay. So that's what the idea of Q factor is. It's all of the ingredients that you give away for free that are included. Okay. So in this case, we have bread, starch, vegetable, dinner salad, salad dressing, butter, and then the condiments. All of that adds up to $3.43. So when I take that into consideration, and my brisket is $2.91. Let me go back to yellow highlighter because that looks better. All right, so that brisket is $2.91, the serving. And then of course I guess we're adding barbecue sauce, but then this Q factor comes over here at 343. So then that means the cost of my brisket plate is $6.75. If I have a sausage plate, if I have turkey, if I have chicken, if I have ribs, basically all I'm doing is updating this protein. Everything else pretty much stays the same, right? Because every plate's going to get bread, it's going to get a starch of some sort, a vegetable of some sort, a salad that comes with it, okay, with that salad dressing, and then the condiments. Any questions about Q factor?
Are
If you use like the food cost percentage one method, can you also add the Q factor method with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say we wanted to have a 30% food cost. Well, in this case, my menu cost is $6.75, right? So I would do the $6.75 and then divide by 30%, and that would give me my selling price for this particular item at $22.50. That seems about right to me to go out to have a brisket dinner that includes a starch, a side, a starch, a vegetable, a salad, and bread. And then the lettuce, like what, not lettuce, but like the jalapenos, pickles, onions, all of that included. $22.50. That sounds about right pricing to me. Yes, Kenneth.
does Q have any meaning here, or is it just a stand-in for like X?
That's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that. You've stumped me. So I don't know, but we are going to use Q factor in a different way in our project. So there's two different ways. This is one, and then our project, I'll show you next week how we're going to use Q factor in our project as far as when it comes to costing out the recipes. Okay. Now, let's go back. Let's think back to our discussion about our breakfast plate. That was the difference between bacon and sausage. Right? If I am going to establish that my starch is 65 cents and my vegetable is 55 cents, I should be using, if the guests have a choice of different vegetables and starches, I should probably be using the most expensive one, or maybe like the middle of the line one, right? Should definitely not be using the cheapest one. Because what happens if I use the cheapest one, you're going to lose money. Okay. But if we use that middle of the line one, then when we order the cheapest, when guests order the cheapest cost and they also order the most expensive, it'll all average out. Okay. So you might start with that most expensive one, like let's say mac and cheese, right? A lot of cheese, a lot of dairy in there. You have to make a bechamel sauce. So all of that included in your mac and cheese versus green beans. Okay. And so if you start with all of those higher cost ones and it comes out that this plate comes out to $30, you think my guests are not going to pay $30. Then you go back to the drawing board and kind of rearrange and kind of figure out the pricing. Okay. It's not set in stone.
Where did the 30% being ideal standard come from?
I don't know the answer to that. That's just the industry standard that they've agreed upon, 30 to 33%. But I can look into that,
Thank you.
of course.
I'm just wondering if it's arbitrary or if there's like math behind it being like
Yeah.
required for survivability or
Yeah.
what.
Well, because if you think about it, if we go back to like chapter 1 when we talk about the prime cost, right? With that prime cost, if we have 33% food costs, food and beverage, and then 33% of labor, that's our prime cost. And then that would basically leave a third, 33% for everything else plus your profits. So it might have just been a simple, let's break it down a third, a third, a third. I don't know. I'll look into it and find out.
Yeah, I'll look too.
Cool.
Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, so on your notes page, I want you to draw this diagram that you see, including all the words, popularity, contribution margin, high and low. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording while we draw, and I'll resume when we come back. All right, so this diagram is an introduction into the menu analysis and how we can basically look at different individual items and put them into one of these 4 categories. This is a pretty common diagram that you would see in business when you have 2 different categories or 2 different criteria, I should say. And then how we're going to put it into different categories. So let me show you real quick. If a menu item has a high popularity and it has a high contribution margin, those lines come and they intersect right here at the category star. So if it's very popular and if it makes us a lot of money, it's considered a star item on our menu. Okay. Now, you might be asking, how do we determine whether it's high or low popularity or contribution margin? It's a great question. I'm glad you asked. Let's talk about it. All right. So those of you who are online, you should download and open up that in-class activity, introduction activity. Those of you who are in person, I'm going to pass out some papers for you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So we have 2 different categories. We have 2 categories. One is population, one is contribution margin. Okay. Let's go to contribution margin first. Okay. When we're looking at our contribution margin, let's go, here we go. Okay. Let's go to our contribution margin. We know based on our previous discussion during the first part of this chapter that contribution margin is equal to what? Our contribution margin is equal to the
Non-food cost plus profit divided by number of guests.
well, so the contribution, that's the contribution margin method.
Oh,
The contribution margin itself is our menu price minus our recipe cost. Okay. So our menu price minus our recipe cost, that gives us our contribution margin. So whatever we sell it for, take away the recipe cost, and what's left over is that non-food cost and the profit. Okay. So what I would like you to do is let's flip your page over first. We're working on the back side of the page first. Okay. We're working on the back side first. Contribution margin. No, I take that back. Sorry. We're on the bottom of the first page. Sorry. Bottom of the first page. So we're using our contribution margin. We already have them figured out for the bacon cheeseburger all the way to the veggie burger. So I want you to go ahead and figure out your contribution margin for the chicken sandwich, hamburger, crab cakes, and chili cheeseburger. So I want you to figure out these contribution margins. All right, what is our contribution margin for our chicken sandwich?
6.45.
Thank you so much. $6.45. And how about that hamburger? 4.75. Thank you. And the crab cakes,
4.20.
$4.20. And then our chili cheeseburger, $6. Yep. Okay. So these are the contribution margins for each item. But how do we know what is high and what is low? What's considered high and what's considered low? It's a great question. I'm glad you asked. Let me share with that for you. Okay. What we're going to do, we first have to figure out what our contribution margin is. Then we want to find our average contribution margin. So how do you find the average of any group of numbers? Add them all up and then divide by the number. There we go. Good. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 items. So whatever answer we get as the total, we're going to divide that by 8. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and do that and then see if we get the same answer. I'm going to do it right alongside you.
$5.51.
Okay, so my total comes out to $44.10. And so, Ray, when you divide by 8, you get $5.51. That is my average. Okay. So now we can go and compare. Is $6.45, is that higher or lower than 5.51?
High.
It is higher. You can just put an H if you want. You don't have to worry about doing an L. Okay. So our contribution margin for chicken sandwich is higher. What about 4.75? Is that higher or lower? Lower. Good. Okay. 4.20 is lower. $6 is higher. So both of those are higher. And then 4.75 is lower, 5.70 is higher, and 6.25 is higher. That is how we determine which category we're going to go into, higher or lower for contribution margin. Okay. So if you want to take one moment while I have this up on the screen, flip your page over to the back. And you can write in the dollar amount for those first 4. You can transfer those first 4 right here. And then also just make sure you have your highs and lows that they match on your chart. So make sure your highs and lows on this chart match what's on the screen. So one of the biggest issues that students run into is they compare, they say 555 is lower than 645. Okay, you see what I did there? They did 551 is lower than 645, so they would put a low right there. That's not true. What we want to do is, oh man, can I undo that? Nope. Hold on, let's see. Is there an undo? There is not. Dang it. Oh well. What we want to do is 645 higher or lower than the average contribution margin? So is the item's contribution margin, is it higher or lower than the average? Okay. So let's talk popularity. Popularity, let's go back to the front of our page. Top box. Okay. The steps, number one, to calculate our popularity index, number one, right up here at the top. Okay, where all this blank stuff is at the top. The first step to calculate our popularity index is we have to add all items served. So step one is to add all items served. Add up all the items that we served that day or that period. Step number two is to divide the individual item by the total. Popularity is a percentage. Popularity is a percentage. What is the universal formula for a percentage?
Part divided by whole.
Part divided by whole, right? So if we take a look, number one, if we sold 64 steak entrees, what is the popularity index if we sold 320 entrees? So overall, we sold 320 total. Let's write it out here. Overall, we sold 320 total. And in this case, the question is saying we served 64 steaks. So of that 320, 64 of them were steaks. So 64 is the part. The whole is the 320. And we divide 64 by 320. What do we get?
20%.
Exactly, 0.2, which we know is 20%. Okay. If we sold 25 chicken entrees, what is the popularity index if we sold 75? So 25 divided by 75,
33.
33.3%. Right? Because it's exactly 1/3. So that's how we're going to figure out our popularity percentage. Okay. So now let's go ahead and do our popularity percentage for bacon, cheeseburgers, BLTs, corn dogs, and veggie burgers. You'll notice I've already added this for you. I've already added 500 is our total. So you're going to want to come up here and do divide by 500 for each one of these items. That's a division sign. This is not 1500. It's a division sign. Divide by 500.
She should have given us more.
When you have your four answers, compare your answers to your neighbor and see if you got the same answers. "25 minutes, we're doing good on time." All right, you do not need to add the 0.0. That's okay. I use Excel when I create these, so it automatically includes that 0.0. You don't have to include the 0.0 in your numbers. You can just put the whole number. That's fine. But one way we can test our work to see if we got the right answer is if we add all of these up, it should equal 100%. Okay. It should equal 100%. It might be off by 0.2, because if we round to the nearest decimal, it might be anywhere from 99.8 up to 100.2. Somewhere within that range means that you got it done correctly. All right.
It's
So, sorry, go ahead.
It's 100.
This one is exactly 100. Exactly. I planned it that way so that it's not very confusing. So we are good to go. Now we have to figure out what is high and what is low. What is our highest percentage?
20%.
The bacon cheeseburger.
The bacon cheeseburger at 20%. What's our lowest?
The corn dog.
Corn dogs at 4%. So obviously that's high and low. But what's all the individual stuff? We don't know, right? So let's figure that out. Now I'm going to flip to the back side of your page. And we're going to focus on this section underneath the chart. Okay. We're going to focus on this section underneath the chart. Unlike contribution margin, okay? Contribution margin, we found the average and we stopped right there. That's easy. Popularity percentage, we want actually a particular benchmark. So you're going to see this terminology, popularity benchmark. Okay. That benchmark is a factor of 75% of the average. Okay. So our first step is to divide 100, because that's 100%, right? If we divide that by the number of items that we have on our menu. So in this case, we have 8. So what is 100 divided by 8?
1250.
12.5, yep. So that tells me that if every item was sold evenly, like the same number, right? Then that would be the average of 12.5%. The popularity benchmark takes one more step. Okay. Popularity benchmark says we need to multiply by the factor that's given. So I want to multiply now by 0.75. When I multiply 12.5 times 0.75, I get 9.4%. That is my benchmark, 9.4%. So now we can go back and double check. Is our chicken sandwich is 15% higher or lower than 9.4?
High.
Higher. Good. 17 is
High.
higher. 8.
Low.
Low. 14 is higher. 20 is higher. 16 is higher. And 4 is lower. And 6 is
Low.
lower. So this now gives us our popularity percentages, higher or lower. Let me go ahead and write these down for a moment. All right. So I'm going to consolidate our chart and just go straight down. High, high, low, high, 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 and low, low. Does that match your records for popularity percentage? Okay. Contribution margin, high, low, low, high, high, low, high, high. Okay. Couple of things on this slide right here. Popularity percentage and menu mix are interchangeable. So you might see menu mix percentage. Those are two things that mean the same thing. Menu mix is essentially the mix of the menu items that we sold. So how popular is something based on those percentages? But menu mix is just that percentage of things that are sold. Okay. So now you have your square down below. I'm going to draw mine right here. Contribution margin on the bottom, popularity on the top, on the side. We have high and low. We have high and low. All right. So in your paper, on your paper right here, in this square, we're going to write the items that fall within those different categories. Okay. Which two categories do you think are the easiest ones to identify just by looking at them really quickly? The high, high, and the low, low. So that's our star and our dog. So what I would do is I would not look at line item by line item by line item. I would look for it by category. Okay. So that way your eye is already looking for the specific categories. So let's start with star. We have high, high. So that's our chicken sandwich. Okay. Any other high highs? We have our chili cheeseburger. We have our bacon cheeseburger. Okay. Those are our stars. Now let's look for low lows. We have our crab cakes. And that's it. Okay. So high, high and low, low are very easy to identify. So pick one and stick with it. Okay. The next one, we have our puzzle and we have our plow horse. I do not know where these categories came from, but the way I remember it is puzzled. The high contribution margin means that it gives us a lot of money, right? It contributes more than the average. But I'm puzzled, I'm confused as to why it's not as popular. So that's how I memorize that puzzle goes on the bottom right, is because it's a high contribution margin, but I'm confused, I'm puzzled as to why it's not more popular. Okay. So that means we have low popularity and we have high contribution margin. So a low, high, low popularity, high contribution margin. That's going to be our corn dog and our veggie burger. Our veggie burger. And then the last thing is going to be our plow horse, which is highly popular. People love it. But for whatever reason, it doesn't bring us a lot of money. It brings us less than the average contribution margin. Okay. And so that's going to be our hamburger. And it's going to be our BLT.
I guess that could be just like something that you're just really well known for that gets people in the door to try other things.
Yep. Now it's still like, it's not going to be that we're going to be losing money on it. It just means it's less than the average contribution margin. right? We still have it priced in a way that not like our cupcakes last week where we spent more money than we sold it for. In this case, we still are going to be making some profit on these. It's just not as much as the average. Okay. So we are still making money on these hamburgers, BLTs, maybe just not as much as the average. Okay. So everybody take your hand, put it up in the air, bend your elbow backwards, give yourself a pat on the back a couple of times. You have just done your first menu analysis, right? Okay.
Yay.
You've just analyzed your first menu. We can categorize each one of these items to tell us the story about our menu and how effective our menu is. Okay. Now, let's analyze this. Let's look at this a little bit in more detail. Our stars. Do we want to touch the stars? No, people love it and it brings us money, right? It's higher than the average contribution margin. People love it. Okay. What happens if we change our recipe on a star and people no longer love it? It might move to a different category. It may not be as popular, right? Maybe we're changing our recipe because we want to get a little bit more money. Everyone loves it. So we're going to try to decrease the cost because food costs are getting high. We're going to decrease the cost by changing our menu, our recipe. And then if we change our recipe too much, people may not like it. Okay. Now let's look at the dogs. Crab cakes. Okay. If it's in the dog category, do we just automatically, metaphorically kick it to the curb? No. Right? We don't get rid of it just because it's in the dog category. Why might we not get rid of the crab?
Because it still makes money and it provides variety.
Okay, so it provides variety. It's the only seafood option. Good. What else? Any other thoughts?
Just because popularity is low doesn't mean there's a recurrent tendency of people who don't.
Yeah. What if people come to your place just because of your crab cakes and you take them off your menu and then maybe that person never comes back to your place, right? So a lot of different, I was listening to a podcast the other day and they were saying that, what store is it? There's a restaurant that's closing like 1,500 locations. I think it's Popeyes. I may be misspeaking. But they were saying that if you really want your local neighborhood restaurant, whatever chain this was, it's like you better start visiting it soon because they're going to start determining which ones to close down based on the volume of business. So, anyways, so that's what I was kind of thinking about with the crab cakes. But crab is a really expensive ingredient, right? If you have fresh crab, what happens? That's probably why it's not higher than the average contribution margin because the cost of the ingredients are so high compared to what we have to sell it for. So what might an alternative be to just getting it off your menu completely? What might you consider doing?
Fake crab.
Ooh, not fake crab. No. You say fake crab, and then people are like, nope, definitely not going to be ordering that. What else?
Using an alternate item, it's still retaining the essence of this flaky fish cake. It just doesn't have to use crab.
Yeah,
Okay.
like shrimp
Maybe there is a
cake.
cheaper alternative. Okay, good. You might also consider making it a seasonal item. What if it's during Lent? If it's during Lent, of course you have your chicken sandwich, but that's your only non-red meat option. So during those particular seasons, with specific times of the year, seasonality, you might say, okay, we're going to have it during this time of the year, right? McDonald's does that with their McRib. The McRib is back. Oh my gosh, people go crazy. They got to go get the McRib right then and there. Okay. They take it away and then they bring it back. Take it away and bring it back. That seasonality kind of helps keep it fresh. Okay. The other thing we might think about that BLT, let's look at that BLT for a second. It is low contribution margin, which means it has lower than the average, but people love it. How can we get it to be a star? There's two things that we can do in order to make it a star.
address ingredient costs.
Raise the
Okay,
price.
we can look at the, yep, you guys both said it, two different things. One, we can look at the recipe. The ingredients, that they cost too much compared to what we're selling it for, so that's gonna keep our contribution margin low. Or like Ray recommended, raise the price. So keep the recipe the same, but raise the price. That's gonna increase that contribution margin. Okay. Well, what happens if we raise the price too much? It may lose popularity. Okay. What happens if you're like Mr. Uminski, that when I make a BLT, I put like 8 to 10 slices of bacon on my BLT? That's why it's so expensive, because there's so much bacon on there. But so let's say you cut it down to 4 pieces of bacon to improve the recipe cost, like lower the recipe cost. Well, if you put 4 pieces of bacon on there, it may lose popularity because people may love it yours because it's so much bacon on your BLT compared to other people's, right? So we talk about in the last class how managers have to be kind of detectives and kind of figure out the problems that are going wrong and how to fix the solution, how to come up with a solution. The same thing is within menus and recipes. You may think you have the perfect recipe, but if your guest doesn't think that it's perfect and they don't like the flavor of it, or if they're not interested in trying it, then you're not going to sell it. Yes, Amaya.
This might be like kind of unrelated, but it might, I don't know if it might help or not, but what like the BLT, like the bacon thing, what if you add customization? Like how many slices do you want? Will that help or?
Yeah. So maybe you can have like your standard BLT is 4 slices of bacon. And then you put on your menu, you have a deluxe BLT that has more bacon, right? The deluxe BLT is a higher price because of the better, like the more protein in it, right? Absolutely. That's a great way to distinguish between that. And then you can even go back. And then once you make those changes to your menu, the menu analysis is not a one and done. Once you make your changes, then you analyze it again. What happened to my popularity because I did this? And then maybe in a Maya situation, we might see that more people are ordering the deluxe BLT than a regular BLT. So people really are willing to pay that higher price for the more bacon to keep our recipe the same. So, there's lots of different things that you can do. It's not just a one and done and then just coast. It's a constant of looking at your recipes, making sure people are ordering the things that you're ordering. For the BLT, pretty much the only ingredient in the BLT that's different from everything else on this menu is what?
Lettuce.
Nope, we have lettuce in our burgers.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay. The bread, right?
Oh.
Texas toast, which you have to serve a BLT on Texas toast. There's no question about it, right? So it has to be on a Texas toast. That's the only thing that's different. Well, if we're just buying loaves of Texas toast, well, it's super popular, so we know people are ordering it, right? So we're just trying to figure out how can we. What's that?
You can put burgers on Texas toast. People like that.
You can call it a what is that called?
Patty melt.
Patty melt, right? Create a brand new menu item and use that patty melt, so that way you can have that recipe, that ingredient used in more than one recipe. Okay. So, questions when we're thinking about it changing a menu. We have to ask, is the menu the problem? Okay, is the menu the problem? And what we mean by that is, how many of you are familiar? Like when you go to a restaurant and you open up the menu, and right next to an item on the menu is like a star, or Chili's used to have like the little Chili's logo. What does that represent?
It's meant to show you that it's a quote unquote popular or star.
It's a popular item on their menu, right? Is it really a popular item? I don't know. It could be a puzzle that has a high contribution margin and they just want to make it popular and just draw your attention to it, right? There is a whole study about menu analysis. If you open a menu, the first place you typically look is up to the top right. Okay. If you open a threefold menu, typically the first place you look is either the top left or directly in the top center. Okay. So is the menu the problem? Is an item not popular because we're not bringing attention to it on the menu? Okay. Or is the problem operational? Is our recipe too expensive, or are we not charging enough for this item? Okay, so we have to decide what are the changes that we're going to make. Is it because the menu is an issue, or is it because the problem is operational? Okay, if you have a new item and it's something that you're not known for, what are some ways that you can promote that or market that item to your guests that come back to your restaurant time after time?
Those little bloody, it's not placards, they're clear inserts where you can put paper on.
Yeah, we call them table tents. Okay, so table tents can just have little things that you flip through. I know at Chester's Hamburgers, when I worked there, we had burgers, chicken sandwiches, and hot dogs. That was it. That's all we sold. Well, BLTs, right? But that was it. Now they have ice cream and they have shakes and then they have salads, they have fish, they have wings, right? And so on every single table, you see those little table tents that while people are waiting for their burgers, they can sit there and flip through and see those things. And then maybe the next time they come back into order, they'll be like, oh yeah, remember, we have wings. So let me go and order some wings and try them out. Okay. So it's a way for us to get a product right there in front of them. And then we do our revisions and we do our analysis all over again. It's a repeating cycle. Okay. So in class on Wednesday, we are going to do a menu analysis. Okay. We're going to do one complete menu analysis. And then we're going to change some pricing. Hold on, don't move yet. Move your focus. Move your focus. Okay. We're going to change some prices. That's going to affect the contribution margin. And we're going to do another menu analysis to determine what changes occurred between categories from the first one to the second one. Okay. So that's what we're spending our time with on Wednesday. Because we're doing that on Wednesday, I would like you to open up this popularity benchmark and average contribution margin. I would like you to have this done by class on Wednesday. Okay, so I am changing the due date from the 16th to the 11th at 2 p.m. I would like you to have this done because this is going to help me. This is going to help you do our menu analysis a little bit faster on Wednesday. Okay, so let's take a look at this in the last 3 minutes of class. I'm going to start a brand new recording so that way you can go back